2023 was not a financially tough year after all, especially for Nigeria's public officials. A whopping 721 billion naira, that's approximately $1.26 billion in cash bribes, was paid to public officials in 2023, according to a recent National Bureau of Statistics survey. The report details sectors where the act of bribery is dominant. It revealed an average cash bribe paid was 8,284 million naira, which is 8,284, totaling 87 million bribes, equivalent of 0.8 bribes per adult.
Now, to combat corruption effectively, the NBS urges the government to focus on institutions and public officials that directly impact citizens' daily lives to be able to promote transparency and accountability in Nigeria. Joining us is Secretary General, FollowTheMoney International, Mukhtar Modibbo. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Okay. Interesting, seeing the figures, 721 billion naira in just bribes in 2023. Tell us first of all about how, this analysis, is done. How does the NBS tell and see who is taking bribes across Nigeria?
Okay, so the thing is, the first thing is to congratulate NBS for doing that, and as well as their funders for even coming with an idea to do something like that. But I think there are some questions that we need to ask ourselves about and then ask NBS. One, what are the methodologies of this particular report? Who are the respondents? Right? And then why is it that the report is not on their website for people to go and see? And then, why haven't they published the methodology? And then if you look at what the report says, they look at some certain sectors of the public service. What are the others doing? What are the information from the others? Like, one of the things that will amaze you, or one of the things that is frightening with the way Nigeria is going, is the fact that the first on the list is justices and magistrates, and they have collected as low as 31,000, followed by the custom or immigration, which is 17,800. Which, if you look at the difference, is so big. And in that list, there are people like doctors and midwives. There are people like local governments. Officials which just got some level of autonomy to get their money straight from the federal government. One of the questions is, what of the legitimacy of these people? Who handles the election of these people and what have you? So there are a lot of questions, some key sectors to really focus on. I'm thinking is the oil and gas sector, the mining, the issue of other justices, not just the judges and the magistrate. And another thing that is baffling is even doctors and nurses, or let me say midwives, are part of the list. So there are a lot of questions to that conversation, in as much as it's a good intent for people to understand who how we pay bribe. And if you look at the number of people that are the indicates of the people that are respondents are largely, who are the people that got contact with public officials and they were asked to pay bribe, those that paid and those that declined. This is what we're merging, and this is just for a period of 12 months, right? So the question remains, as the Nigerian that is looking at fighting corruption, who are the respondents, right? Then what are the methodologies that is being followed for this? What's the other public sector, like the agricultural sector, procurement in these ministries, right? And other contracting and what have you, have been something that we've been questioning about. So what of those sector?
I mean, it's interesting, like you've mentioned, it's important that we have some level of clarity as to the modalities that were implemented in conducting this survey. Also understanding what's direct bribe and indirect, because I've seen a part of the report stated about, talked about direct bribe and indirect bribe. I wanted to ask if you had any surprises looking at the report, and from your perspective, having looked at the report, what would you say are some of the key things it tells us about where we are as a nation? I'm seeing here that the report said that about 76% of those who rejected bribes are in the Northwest. the highest across the geopolitical zones. There's also the report about women being less exposed to bribery than men. The report said that 39% of men who engaged with public officials either paid bribe or asked to pay, but declined. But the figure for women was significantly lower. So would you say that, what would you say were maybe any surprises that jumped at you? And what are the key takeaways you would say you've picked up from this to tell us about where we are as a nation?
So where we are as a nation, it's alarming. For the women issues, and then the women indicates, the point is women are not largely being asked to pay money bribe, but they are being asked to pay another thing as a bribe, which is a thing that we need to also maybe investigate and see, because a lot of women, if you ask them, it's not money bribe they're being asked. It's either we've seen a lot of cases around that issue of sex for grade, sex for job, sex for opportunities and what have you. These are things that are happening, right? And when it comes to issues of surprises, it's not surprising. The only surprising thing here is the fact that oil and gas, the mining sector in the northwestern part of the country, like in Zamfara, for instance, we've been having the issue of banditry, kidnapping and what have you. And the main issue has always been the issue of mining. There are a lot of gold in Zamfara and mining activities are going on. A lot of arrests of even foreign individuals have been conducted and being charged to court. So what I'm saying is, these are things, this is the only thing that is surprising me. The oil and gas sector has not been tampered with. The mining sector has not been tampered with. And then the issue of local representative, local government representative, as well as issues of police, right? And then the land registry officers that are less than the judges. So what it tells us is, the first on the list is the justices and magistrate. The last place for a common man is the judiciary. And what we're seeing is our judiciary is at the top ranking of collecting bribe. That is what it says. That's to say we are in a dilemma. And if we don't correct this, we will end up having a lawless country. Because, I mean, who do you approach? Because the land people are there, the customs or immigration are there. And then I've watched one Shamsuddin from the MBS talking about e-governance have sort of reduced the numbers. So the numbers were higher than this, right? But because of e-governance, and the examples he gave on e-governance is the invention of the e-passports that we're seeing today, and so on and so forth. So the reality is, there is a problem. We're heading to where we're not supposed to be heading, and then people are losing patience, right? And then there is nobody coming out to say these are the problems. And the biggest question here is, we have these numbers, whether they are correct or not correct, we have them as a number. What are we going to do with the report? As any government agency or government, maybe Ministry of Justice or ICPC or EFCC or Office of the National Security Advisor or any other person come out to say, okay, we have received this report from NBS and this is what we're going to do. Investigation will be carried on and something will be done. Yeah. Nothing till today. As I speak to you now, if you go on the website of NBS, that report is not highlighted there. And even if you click the link to that report, it takes you to another thing. So what are we saying, right? We are not telling people these are the methodologies. We are not telling people this is why we did not touch other sector and then we hampered on other sectors. Then there is a problem to that question. I think that these are the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would agree with you that the NBS needs to clarify on these aspects that you've raised. It would give more credibility to this report, no doubt. But I also want you to speak, when we talk about, corruption across Nigeria and the fight against corruption. The EFCC does play its role in arresting public officials every now and then, mostly in government, on politicians and the likes. But, how can we fight corruption, to this level that we are seeing now, where almost every institution across the country seems to have the same plague, the same cancer of bribery? It almost feels like it's the normal Nigerian way of life, because if you look at this, this feels like it's normal across Nigeria that you would pay a bribe or you will seek a bribe. So how can we bring the corruption fight to this level? You know, aside the once in a while threatening of former governors, you know, that EFCC does, how can we bring it to this level where institutions can also be cleaned up?
All right, so first of all, I think we need to look at legitimacy of whatever we do, and we need to put out the report of these things that we've done. A lot of cases of EFCC has been heard in the news, and then the case went south. I can confidently tell you that there are numbers of ministers, numbers of governors that have been in court, right? And then there have been some cases like the Yaya Bello case, the former governor of Kogi State, as well as the Dizania Lisselmado case, the Sadia case, and then the Beta Edu's investigation case. None of it is in the public. So once if there is no trust between the citizen and government, then there is a problem, right? And then the independency of these agencies and then the independency of the judiciary is very paramount. And once if we don't see that independency playing out, because if you look at what is happening with the anti-corrupt agencies, most of the people that having cases with EFCC and what have you are not from the present administration, the administration in power. So I'm not saying this thing have started now. I'm saying it has been like that. Anybody that is not in power, you know, will always be the one that will be in question. I'll give you an example with our current Minister of Aviation and then the current Senate President. There have been a time where our current Minister of Aviation was the one prosecuting the Senate President. But what do we have today? He is the Senate President, and this person is now the Minister of Aviation. And I'll give you another example. The person that was sworn in, I think last week or thereabout, a lady, a former member House of Assembly in
Lagos. I remember.
We have a petition against her of diverting some funds, COVID funds, COVID palliative to a private use, celebrate her birthday and what have you. We had that petition for over a year ago now. Till today, no response from ICPC or whatsoever, you know. So the reality is, and today, the person is being appointed to serve as a pension something. I can't really pinpoint the office. What are you saying? And this is someone that will be spearheading people's citizens' money, citizens that have spent maybe 65 to 35 years in service, 65 years of age or 35 years of service. And that person that has a petition against herself or a questionable character of diverting public thing to a private individual. So the reality is we have to look at the independency of the anti-corrupt agencies, the independency of judiciary, and then we need to reshape our mindset around public sector, because a lot of time the other sectors that people do go into, like teaching and other things, a lot of people go there because they have not got job elsewhere, right? Because I mean the infrastructural development is porous, there is no teacher, maybe professional training, and then the remuneration is also something to question about. So I think we have a lot of things to do when it comes to fighting corruption. We have to look at the legitimacy of how these people are being employed. We have to look at their credibility as a source, and then also look at the services they do provide, so that we can see if we can be able to hold them accountable or not.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, there's work that needs to be done from government side, you know, and of course, you know, from the average Nigerian side also. And I'm sure many people would agree with you that it tells a very, very sad, paints a very sad picture if the highest bribery cases are from the judiciary in Nigeria today. That is very, very frightening. And can you also speak in 1 minute on the mentality of the average Nigerian and how we can stop the average Nigerian from thinking that he must give or take a bribe?
First of all, I think we need to imbibe the culture of trust. And then we need to trust our system. We need to follow the system, because as it stands now, a lot of people, if you are standing, maybe following traffic lights, someone will pass and you'll be thinking that, oh, am I mad? Or am I something else for observing or doing what is right? I think we need to remove that culture. Everything starts with us. One people, one nation. We need to imbibe the culture of loving each other. And then we need, from our political side, we need to imbibe the culture of politics of ideology. Ideology in the sense that if someone does not belong to the class of ideology you belong to, you now at least look for a class that you belong to as an ideology. We need to have an ideal and a politics of ideology. We need to trust our system, and the people in government need to put ownership of governance to people, not just for them. And we need to really look at issues that has to do with this transparency and accountability, check and balances in governance. That will now push us to a greater height, and we can run a race together and win the race together. Yeah. That's from me.
And hopefully also have systems placed in in these agencies across the country that reduce the ability of a person to either give or take a bribe. If we had certain systems in place, and also proper auditing of these ministries and agencies,
and punitive measures as well, because if people do that, if they partook in bribery, that there will be grave punishment, because it's even so rife now that people will not. For your contract to go through, you have to pay a certain sum. People get jobs, will have to pay a certain sum. It's become the norm, and it's really rather sad. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right.